please welcome Stephen Bauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, Brian De Palma, Al Pacino. So, why don't we start at the beginning, which would be with the person who discovered the idea of this film, and that would be Al Pacino.
That's me.
Al, how did you come to think of this?
Well, I was on a rare occasion in those days. I was in Los Angeles, and there was a few of us, 5 or 6 of us, walking up Sunset. And in those days, there was a movie house called the Tiffany, and in it was a movie playing, directed by Howard Hawks, starring Paul Muni, and it was called Scarface. And I had heard about that film my entire life. I just was stunned by it. I was stunned by the story and completely taken by Paul Muni's performance. After I saw that, I thought, I want to be him. You know, I want to be Paul Muni. I want to act like that. I want to try or something. And of course, it was a greatly directed film too. Howard Hawks was Howard Hawks. And so afterward, I called Martin Bregman. Now, Marty Bregman, who I've been in 5 movies with, you know, Martin Bregman, Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, you know, Carlito's Way, Sea of Love. It just is endless. And he was my go-to partner. And I just said, Marty, you ever hear of a movie called Scarface? And I don't remember what he said. I know he was in some dark apartment for some reason. I could just feel it on the phone. I thought it was the apartment I had become familiar with. And I said, are you all right? He said, yes, because he's 3 hours ahead. I was in LA. I said, I just saw this film, Scarface, with Paul Muni. Can you find out more about it? Because I think it's a movie we should make. I think we can make it together. So he said Scarface and something and started looking into it. And that was all he needed, because after he saw it, you know, he got people involved. And one of the first people that was involved was Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone wrote this, you know. I wish he was here tonight. And that was the start of it. And then we had Sidney Lumet for a while, whose idea it was actually to make it Cuban with the boat lift there in the 80s. He said, yeah, because in a way, Paul Muni's character was an immigrant from Italy. And this was, so it was that transaction. And then things happened, and that got separated. And then the great Brian De Palma was taken on as the director. Amazing. So, and the rest followed. They had me, and they then got everybody else, Michelle and Stephen and Elizabeth and all the great actors in this piece just came, and they just, and in those days we actually rehearsed, which was shocking.
A lot.
Was shocking, yeah. And of course, Stephen, I have to say this now while we're in this sort of chain, you know, that it was Stephen that really helped me a lot with the Cuban, and we spent how many months together?
Because I'm really Cuban.
That's what he said. He was really Cuban.
Yeah. And when we first got together, they finally put us together, and I go into this office, and there he is waiting for me. After all this build-up from the guys, from Bregman and from Brian, and and we smile and we fall in love and everything. But Al goes, I just got to ask you something. Why is your name Steve Bauer? If you're really Cuban, why are you Steve Bauer?
He said, it's my stage name.
I said, no one can pronounce Echevarria.
Echevarria.
Can you?
Now I can.
Oh, we can.
You're always teaching me something. But that's what he would do when we were together. We spent literally months together.
Yeah, we spent months. Months.
on the beach.
We had that luxury though, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Which I don't know that people have that now. I don't do movies anymore. But those
No,
big
it is
movies,
different. That it is different today. They don't have the. We had a couple of months to be together, the whole summer, actually.
all summer.
We had all summer.
And we took a house. I lived in Malibu in a little hovel on PCH, and then Al took a house. He rented a house, a beautiful house, and I would come over every day for breakfast, and then people would come by, Johnny Carson and Marty Sheen and all his great.
No, Johnny Carson used to walk by my.
He used to
never
walk
came.
by us. No,
He wouldn't go near me.
We
No,
never
no.
said hello.
No.
He walked
But
funny.
Marty Sheen would come by. and say,
Marty would come over. Yeah, but we spent every day for just about a month just not reading the script,
Yeah.
just talking about our lives. Here's the secret.
Yeah.
That's how, when people say, how do you guys have that chemistry? Because we spent all that time talking about our lives in Cuba previous to the first shot. And what he taught me was that will imbue your performance. And so that was very easy and cool. And we did it every day for about a month. And then Brian gave us the luxury of doing rehearsals.
Here's a question. You all have had children, and when you were making this movie, you might not have thought that someday you would have to say that you made a movie in which fuck is used 226 times or 1.32 fucks a minute.
But who's counting?
No, it got counted. The question is, what did you tell your kids when they said, what is this movie, Scarface? What did you tell them?
Well, in those
Society.
days, I would imagine that fuck was used a lot,
Yeah, just
but not
in
as
movies.
much as it
Unlike
is
today.
now.
Just
You know,
not in movies.
I think my kids did nothing about it when they saw it. They didn't even mention it, actually. So that was not surprising somehow. I don't know. It's today's world. This is 35 years ago. So-
But it was big enough. But it was singular enough that the critic at the time, the Time magazine critic, I remember Richard Schickel. Where are you? Probably long gone. Anyway, he made a point of it. He counted, and that was part of his review. Really.
Why do you think it was used so much? I wonder. This is an interesting thought as to what was it put there to do? Was it to heighten the already heightened vision of Brian's and in general Oliver's? Because I think that was part of it. I think that bombast was part of what we were trying to say with the movie, as it was bigger than life,
And-
that it was
and-
operatic and
So we come now to Brian. In the original,
it had to come sooner or later, Brian.
in the original Scarface, when a character was killed, there was an X on the screen, was there not? You got an X rating,
Yes,
and you got it 3 times,
that's correct.
and then you changed it so it could get an R,
No,
and then you released the X rating.
No, he just fooled them.
no. I would submit it to the ratings board. I had battled with the ratings board through a whole bunch of movies I had made, and this was our last skirmish. And I kept on submitting versions of it, and they say it's an X. So I changed it a little bit, took a few more things out, and I submitted it a second time, it got an X. Then I submitted it a third time, and I think they were upset about the hits in The Clown. Remember The Clown? That shot? They're very bothered by the
Very,
hits.
very, very, very unpleasant.
Very violent. It's just too much. So at which point, I said, I've had it with these people. I'm not taking anything more out. And I told Marty, and Marty said, well, we'll go to war with these people. And that's what we did. And
We're going to war. We're going to war.
to make sure that everybody understands that they said, okay, then we were going to go to war with the third version. I said, no, 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 no. We're going to put the movie exactly the way I originally cut it. If I got an X on the third, I got an X on the second, I got an X on the first. We're going with the original version. And they said, you can't do that. And I said, why not? They didn't have an answer for that. And ultimately, we had to appear. Marty organized a very good presentation in front of the whole board, and we won. It was one of the great moments that we had. We beat the censor board.
So, Brian, Chekhov says if you see a gun in the first act, it gets fired in the second act. At the start of the film, you have a chainsaw. There's nowhere you can go from there but more. Did you ever, what was going on? Did you think, this is like very over the top?
No, no, no. That was in Oliver's script. He had, followed reporters in Florida. This was based on an incident of them, chopping people up in chainsaws and dumping them in the garbage. So
Yes, but they don't usually put this in the movies.
Yeah, it was a first, sort of.
Well, I kind of
They don't usually have over 200 fucks in a movie either.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. I thought you had to show that these were a different kind of gangsters. And so let's show in the beginning what kind of violence you're going to be dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, I'm, as the father of a daughter, I'm concerned with body image, right? The preparation for this film, what did you weigh?
I don't know.
You were...
But I was playing a cocaine addict.
To my point.
Yeah, so that was part of the physicality of the part, which you have to consider.
Yeah.
So, but I do remember, the movie was only supposed to be, a 3-month, 4-month?
Shoot.
It ended up being, and then, of course, I tried to time it so that as the movie went on, I became thinner and more emaciated. The problem was the movie went 6 months.
8 months.
I was starving by the end of it because the one scene, which was the end of the film, where I needed to be my thinnest, it was next week, and then it was next week, and then it was next week. I literally had members of the crew bringing me bagels.
Yes,
Because they were all worried about me at how thin I was getting. I think I was living on tomato soup and Marlboros.
Can you remember your first meal after the shoot?
No. It was probably Mexican food. Probably chips and guacamole or something like that.
At Lucy's Dope.
Stephen, I'm curious, since you are Cuban, since you are Esteban Ernesto Echevarria Sampson by birth, and you came here when you were 4 years old and lived in Miami, how did the Cubans take to you playing this role?
I didn't tell anybody, really, the extent of the mayhem that we would be a part of. But people knew, in a sense, they just didn't know that we were going to depict what was actually going on in the city. The murder, the body count in Miami at that time. And if you see that we were actually shooting while that was still going on. And a lot of the old school Cubans were concerned with me, and what I tried to convey to them was, relax, man, it's a movie, Just take it easy and be happy for me.
So,
right?
Al,
it's like...
As Stephen just said, this is a movie. But you were in another movie, which is bigger than all the other movies ever put together in the history of time.
Godfather.
And you have lines in that movie that are memorable, and yet the line that is most memorable comes from this movie. What do you do when people come up to you and say, could you say that line for me?
Well, say hello to my little friend, yes. I say hello.
Oh, my little friend.
That's an Oliver Stone.
He's out there somewhere.
I must say, Oliver Stone wrote that. So, as he did so many wonderful lines in this movie, and No, it's caught on in such a way, and we all have experienced it. You know, this wasn't the way it started, because when Scarface first came out, it was extremely controversial. You can imagine this kind of movie, and it stays in our lexicon in a way, and it's around, and it's a part of our culture in a strange way. There's a good, very interesting book written about it called Scarface Nation, as to some of the reasons they think it is, and they still come away not knowing why it is, why it's still here, and why it still lives.
Why language becomes iconic, why dialogue becomes iconic.
And why this kind of spirit in a movie, why this kind of thrust in a movie stays so somehow relevant, you know?
Well, there's another line in the movie which could perhaps suggest this, like for this year. Who put this thing together? Me.
Me.
Who do I trust? Me. Who does that sound like?
Oh, well, I didn't think we'd get political. Let's see. George Washington?
Okay.
That comes to mind.
Let's try an easier question for 100.
Yeah.
Who's more evil, Tony Montana in this movie or Satan in The Devil's Advocate?
Well, we know it's Satan and the devil's advocate. And here's the reason, because that's really the devil. Yes. You know, I wanted to say in that gunfight, because I wanted to say it because it's a very interesting story, that, you know, the gunfight at the end, whatever you want to, the finale, yes. This is an opera. And I remember firing off rounds, and out of that machine gun, you know. And I fired about 30 rounds, and somebody then shot me, and I got hit, and I flew in the air, and landed, and you know I was still sort of alive and ready. There was a lot of support there, you know. A lot of that cocaine really keeps you going, and so. There I was, and I grabbed the barrel of the gun I just fired. Ouch. My hand stuck to it. Yeah. It just stuck to it. And so I remember someone had to get me, you know, and then it was over. And we had to go to the hospital, a burn hospital, a great burn hospital.
I got 2 weeks off.
And then, so Brian.
You got 2 weeks off.
The film.
But here's the thing. I was in the hospital, and I'm standing there, like, you know, and I got all this blood all over me, nurses coming back and forth, and I'm standing there like this, with holding my hand up, and finally they wrap it up and stuff, you know. And this nurse comes up to me later, and she says, well, you're Al Pacino, huh? I said, yeah, I am. She says, I thought you were some scumbag.
So,
I mean, there's something there, you know. I mean, it's interesting.
So, Brian, a couple of questions. What did you do during the 2 weeks that the movie was off?
We shot everything that Al was shooting. So you see those 8,000 kids come in and try to shoot him. We shot everything away from Al. That's why there's so much shooting, because we just kept shooting.
Now,
All those guys,
Also-
all those little guys creeping up and fighting.
I've read that Steven Spielberg took one shot on this movie. I looked really closely. I couldn't tell what it was. What was it?
Oh, I don't know. Stephen was on the set one day, and we had like 4 cameras running, and Stephen was...
The mirrors.
He was?
The mirrors.
He was shooting one of the cameras, you know, because we used multiple cameras when the kids ran in and shot toward us.
Let's talk about themes for a moment. Oliver Stone wrote Scarface, and a few years later, he wrote Wall Street. To some degree, they're the same movie, are they not? They're movies about greed. Is that, do you think, what the movie is ultimately about? What's your sense of it?
Well, I've always been interested in making movies about people that start rather humbly and then acquire a great deal of power and then ultimately isolate themselves and sort of live in their own world. Could that be anything we're experiencing now?
Comfort zone.
So, Michelle,
Comfort zone.
there's a remake of this movie that's been discussed. The Coens have done a script. It goes back and forth. Who knows? Could you see a remake of this film in which the Tony Montana character is female?
No.
No.
I think it's quite remarkable that the movie we made is a remake of a really great movie. That's really hard to do.
Exactly.
So, Brian, if you were making the movie now, would you have Tony Montana be Russian? Would he be Mark Zuckerberg?
No.
It's a very specific.
No, I thought Oliver had a very fantastic idea, making with these Cubans coming to America. And I like, obviously, making gangster movies with, gangsters that are Latin American. Because not only do you have the guns, you have the beautiful colors, and you also have the dancing.
Michelle, you've described your role in this movie as a set piece, right? You're the arm piece. You're the female person who gets acted on. But you've also said that owning and claiming your performance within that is important. What is it like to claim your performance against what Al is doing?
Well, I get asked a lot, what did I learn from working with one of the greats like Al Pacino? And I have to say, one of the things that hit me the strongest from the beginning was watching him fiercely protect his character and really at all costs and without any sort of apology. And I have always tried to emulate that. And I try to be polite about it. But I think that that's what really makes great acting, and I think it's, and so I really tried to emulate his process. And, the other thing about Elvira is that, because I remember at the time, even then, I kind of got a lot of questions about, well, you're playing, somebody who's subservient. What sort of message is that sending to women? And I was also in my early 20s. I hadn't actually thought about that a lot at the time. But I mean, I really feel that sometimes you can do a lot more for a cause by actually, being an artist, it's really presenting to people what is the truth. Yep. And not sugar-coated, and that I felt that by allowing people to observe who this character is and the sacrifices that she's made, said more than getting up on any soapbox and sort of, preaching to people.
Absolutely. And it's so beautiful and so subtle.
We have time for one more question. I guess, Al, it goes to you. So,
Yes.
what did you take away from this movie? What did you learn about yourself as an actor, as a person, and as a significant figure in the world?
Whoa.
That's three questions.
Okay, let me ask it another way.
Oh, okay.
You make a lot of movies, and sometimes you get a feeling that what you're doing, is really, really good. Did you have that feeling in this?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I did have a feeling. I must say this, it's true. Because there are certain roles you feel that you can find that channel. We all have them. Sometimes they come a little more, a little less. But with Scarface, I must say, there was something about the preparation. There was something about the text and Brian working together with everybody that I found that channel in myself, that I felt this is about something that I really want to say in some way. And I think basically that's what we all feel. And sometimes we don't do it here consciously, it comes unconsciously. But you feel you're on some track, and because there's also roles you play that you go off the track. But with Scarface, I felt consistent in a certain way about something.
Can I just add that a lot of times you find yourself where the director, the captain of the ship has an agenda that is not necessarily yours, or even the cast. They've got their own separate agenda. And to Brian's credit, what I've always felt through the years, watching the movie over and over again, and in the editing, of course, and he was there, he was editing the movie, is that he had the wisdom and the innate feeling that the actors he chose to tell this story knew what they were doing. Right, Brian? And you let us go. You let us go. You let us fly.
Yeah, but the amazing thing to me in seeing this movie again and again is the extraordinary performances. I mean, you just look at these actors.
Well, that's it. Well,
So
but you let us fly.
here we are, all these years later, still captivated. Let us thank these people.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all. Good to see you all. Thank you for coming.